Okay, let me show you how to calculate relative frequency of a frequency table using the NumWorks calculator. Now, the NumWorks calculator, I kind of want to say we're going to be maybe breaking the rules just a little bit, not quite using it the way that maybe it's originally intended, but it will serve our purposes. Okay. Um, so I'm going to be following the instructions here, um, but I'm going to be creating a video, of course, um, so that you can kind of see, how I did each one of these different steps. And the example data we're going to be looking at is a previous example where we had a frequency table of hair color, black, blonde, and brown. So I'm just going to use that same example because we're already familiar with it and we know where we're going with it, okay, with the calculator. So I'm going to be using like the online version of this calculator. And let me clear this out. All right. So, I'm in the calculation app on this calculator. If I want to get back to all of the different apps that are available on this calculator, you want to hit this orange home button. Okay, so this gives us all of the apps that are in this calculator. And if you scroll down, there's more. We can scroll up, and this is the calculation app that I was just in. But what we want to do in order to calculate relative frequency and later cumulative frequency is we want to go into this statistics app. So go down one so that the statistics app is selected. And I think you can click OK or execute. So I'll just hit OK. And this is what the statistics app looks like. So it's organized differently than the Texas Instruments calculator. So here we've got two columns. The first column is a value, and the second column is a frequency. And this is where I was talking about we're going to use it a little bit differently than intended. All right. In our frequency table, we had hair color and we had frequencies of hair color. Well, we can't put hair color, we can't type in black here. We can't type in blonde. We can't type in brown. Okay. We can only type in those frequencies. So I'm going to put those frequencies here in this V1 column. Okay. So we had 15 and then 14 and then 21, like that. Okay. Um, so, you know, technically you're right. You're probably thinking, well, these are frequencies. Why aren't they in this frequency column? And this will become evident later when we do cumulative relative frequency. All right. And this is where I'm kind of using this for slightly different purpose. All right. So we want this column here to not be frequency. We want it to give us values of relative frequency. So how do we use this now to make our lives a lot easier and use the calculator to its optimal use? So what you want to do is you want to scroll up to the column heading and go to the right, and we want to highlight the frequency N1 column heading. All right. And go ahead and click OK, the OK button. And what we want to do is we want to fill this with a formula. So scroll down and we put fill with formula and click OK. And the formula that we want to fill it with, it gives us some templates to work from. Okay, and there's more, but we'll just go ahead and select empty. So it brings us back to our data tab. Okay, and it brings us back to this screen we already saw, except now on the bottom left-hand corner, it says N1 equals. So what it's prompting us for is it's saying, okay, you want to fill this column with a formula, give me the formula. And what we want to do is the formula that we want to use is the relative frequency formula, which was, if I switch back over to our notes, here we go. Relative frequency is frequency divided by n. And so for us, the frequency is in column N1. Okay. So let's go back to the calculator. Remember N1. So let me go back to the calculator. I'm sorry, it should have been V1. Let me go back. I need to fix that. Not N1. The frequency is V1. Okay. So let me go back. Here we go. So here's our list of frequencies. And so we want to put V1 in there. So how do we type V1? Well, I don't see a V1 on any of these keys. All right. But I do see the letter V here in the division button. So how do I get a capital V? Okay, and it has to be a capital V because this is a capital V here. So if I were to just hit this alpha button by itself and I hit the division, it gives me a lowercase v, and that won't work. Okay. The calculator won't recognize this lowercase v as being a reference to this capital V up here that we want to reference. So let me delete that. So in order to make it capital, notice that the word alpha is lowercase here, meaning if we just use it alone, it'll give us a lowercase letter, but it's uppercase in orange. And so because it's in orange, that means if we hit this orange shift button first, the alpha button second, and now we hit this division button, it'll give us a capital V. So notice this is a capital letter now. And we want to reference V1. So now we just put a 1. So now with the way that we've typed in V1, this now becomes this column of data. And so our relative frequency is equal to frequency divided by the sum of all of these. So how do we put the sum of this list? So we could just add these up, and these end up adding up to 50. So we could just put 50 and hit execute. All right. But let me show you. Let's say you didn't want to add all these up, because what if you had 15 or 20 of these rows and you didn't want to add them all up? You want to make the calculator do it for you. Let me show you how to do that. So what we need to do is we need to go to a list of functions, operations that the calculator has built into it that lets you work with lists. So what we want to do is we want to tap this var button, stands for variables. We want to go into lists. Oh, no, wait. No, back up. I misspoke. Okay, instead of doing that, okay, sorry, go to the toolbox button. Toolbox. It's this button on the top row, second from the right, and it looks like it's got a little toolbox here. I'm sorry about that. Okay, now go down to our lists toolbox right here. And you can click OK or use the right arrow key. It won't matter. And then we want to go to operations like this. Click OK. And we want sum, right? A sum of the elements. So we'll click OK. So notice it put this sum function here. What we want to do is we want to take our values in this V1 column and divide it by the sum of this column. So now we need to hit Shift alpha, and then the division button will give us a capital V, and then put a 1. And then because we've got a left parentheses here, we need to put a right parentheses to kind of close this sum function off. So again, let's look what we've got here. This is our relative frequency. Okay, we're going to put our relative frequencies here in this column. So the relative frequency is equal to our list of frequencies, which are here, divided by the sum of all of our frequencies, the sum of this list. And now, as soon as we hit OK, it auto-calculates the relative frequency for each row, 0.3, 0.28, 0.42. If we go back to our notes, you can see it's the same as what we had earlier, 0.3, 0.28, 0.42. So again, this is a huge time saver when you've actually got more values here. And you just have to make sure that the values you enter in, you didn't make any typos. All of these values are correct. But if you learn how to use the functions on this calculator, it can really save you a lot of time and help reduce the errors that you make. All right, let me know if you have any questions.